How did Alexander the Great influence one of the Ottoman Empire's most brutal practices? TikTok, this is educational, so please don't take it down. But the Ottoman Empire became infamous for its practice of fratricide, in which whichever one of the princes would claim the throne after their father's death would unalive all of his brothers and their sons, regardless of age, and typically there was a large procession of caskets seen leaving the palace. And partially this is because in the Ottoman Empire there was no primogeniture, and meaning all the sons had equal claim to the throne. And typically whenever they reached what was considered manhood, they would be sent to the different provinces to learn how to govern. And while technically the Sultan didn't pick a favorite son, he could send his favorite son to the province that was closest to the capital. And this, while it predates Mehmed the Conqueror, he's the one that sort of made it more of an open policy in the empire, because he was obsessed with Alexander the Great and wanted to emulate Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great, whenever he was on his deathbed, he had no obvious heir to his empire. He was asked by his advisors who his empire should go to, and he said it should go to the strongest. So Mehmed thought that answer was the best, and even though he had two sons at the time of his death, he refused to name either one of them his successor because he wanted whichever one of them was the strongest to succeed him. And by the way, it ended up being his oldest son, but there was a struggle, and it continued for at least a century or more in the empire. And actually some historians, as fucked up as this practice was, actually think that was why the Ottoman Empire had a succession of such talented sultans, because that practice essentially provided that the most suited for the job ended up being the sultan, because they were able to get the military's backing, able to get the government's backing in order to do this. Anyway, if you want to know more about the Ottoman Empire or more about this practice, hit follow and like this video.